people are using mental health for validation or for pity. When you said that, I have anxiety, or like as a trend. So I always say that mental health is a trend that needs to keep trending, because it's very important for us to create the awareness, whether it's based on our expertise, our knowledge, or our experience. But I really like the fact that you brought the other aspect to it, that some people also use it as a way of getting that validation or getting pity, or I don't know, like getting attention,
Eyes open, hearts ready. Welcome to Wellness Deconstructed. I am Zeeya Jaffer, and together we're stepping into the arena of authentic well-being. Myth-busting, truth-seeking, and definitely life-changing. Break free, live boldly. It's time for a conscious uprising.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Wellness Deconstructed. I'm your host, Zeeya Jaffer, and today we're talking about mental health in Kenya in general. And today's guest is Rubie Miseda, the founder of Africa Jipende Wellness, a home-based and online therapy program known for its holistic approach to mental wellness. She's a licensed psychologist, a wellness advocate, and she has background in criminology and sociology. Wow. Welcome, Rubie.
Thank you, Zeeya. Thank you for having me.
This criminology and sociology is so intriguing. I'm like, whoa, what is that? But welcome to Wellness Deconstructed. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. So why don't we start with you telling us about the difference between a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and a counselor? I feel like that gets jumbled up a lot and we don't know who to go to for what level of work.
I know that's something that confuses a lot of people here in Kenya because mental health is very new. A psychiatrist is a medical doctor that has gone to medical school and specializes in psychiatry for their masters.
Okay.
Usually their main focus is to deal with the pharmacology part, so diagnosing and prescribing medication. And then with psychologists, there are different specialties because you can specialize in any. Forensic, clinical, social, counseling, but I'll focus on two. So the clinical psychologist is somebody who is more acquainted with diagnosing mental health conditions. They do not prescribe, but then the way in which they provide their techniques is that techniques help people who have, like, for example, conditions like depression, anxiety, bipolar, which is a mood disorder, just in a nutshell, and you'll find them in mental health hospitals. As for a counselor is somebody who focuses on like the stresses. If you're having issues like stress, or if you're having relationship problems, usually a counselor focuses on things like that.
So I feel like the first step would be a counselor, then it would go to, if it gets worse, then it goes to a psychologist, and then if you have to, a psychiatrist, or there is no particular form like that? It depends on what level of condition or what stresses basically a person is dealing with.
Yes, so sometimes a counselor can have a case and the case becomes beyond them. Some people will come in and they find out that they have stress, right? And in true sense, that stress is actually underlying anxiety. They might need more of assistance of like a clinical psychologist or a psychiatrist because maybe the stress levels is making them unable to get out of bed or unable to be productive. So obviously that's when people in the clinical sector, the clinicians, step in and deal with that case.
Oh, I really like that. Yeah, that clarifies a lot. So since we're talking about mental health in general in Kenya, could you tell us, like, since moving to Kenya and starting your work here, what is the pattern of mental health you've seen? Like the growth in the awareness, but also like maybe a pattern of conditions that you've seen mostly here?
So I would say that the biggest one is obviously depression and anxiety. Each case is very unique. So I've started to see a huge increase in complex PTSD, ADHD, right? OCD, and OCD has different forms. And also we're having an increase in people who have bipolar. And you see, because mental health is something that is very new in Kenya, a lot of people don't really know conditions outside depression and anxiety, right?
Yeah, I feel like depression and anxiety are so overused.
Yes.
And people use it even without being diagnosed particularly with it. And I know anxiety is common because most people in this day and age deal with the stresses of life and feel anxious.
Yeah.
But being diagnosed is something very different from feeling anxious, because that might be temporary. It doesn't mean that we are diagnosed with depression, right?
Yes, it's like how OCD is always misused.
Yes.
Right? That's something I've noticed everywhere. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so OCD about this, I'm so OCD about that. But there are like 4 types of OCD, and people only focus on the germs. But then even if somebody says that they have OCD because they're afraid of germs, it's an obsession. Some people have to, make sure that they cleanse an area 4 times, or they have to make sure that their room smells a particular way, otherwise they're unable to do anything. I've also noticed that people are starting to see mental health as this new cool thing, like, oh, I'm going to go see my therapist, oh, I have anxiety, or they use that as a way of also sometimes even manipulating their way through things. So I think it's wonderful that so many people are now becoming aware of mental health, but you see, we need to make sure that we educate them. And one of the things I've noticed is educating them based on their cultural language, in terms of socializing, in terms of their family history of emotional relationship, in terms of the environment that people are interacting with each other. For example, what I've noticed, like with men, anxiety in men looks kind of different, and also anxiety depression in men, right? So, for example, you'll find like a woman is more emotionally expressive, right? Or a bit vulnerable because she has other fellow women that are there to, talk about their feelings. As for men, their experiences are diminished and their emotions are diminished. So what they will do, they'll go to the bar and they will drink, right? So then we see this person drinking so much and we have a problem with them, which fair enough, drinking is not good to that level.
Of course.
But then we don't think at the back of our minds that maybe this man is probably unhappy. Probably this man is sad, or this man is overwhelmed with the weight of the world. Same with like anxiety in men. I always say that stress is a silent killer. What stress does, it tears you, it's different types of pressures and demands. And one of the symptoms of stress is uncontrollable worry, fear. What are the other symptoms of anxiety? Fear, worry, right? So you'll find a man is always trying to solve so many problems, wants to solve so many things, but then you don't realize at the back of your mind that probably this person has anxiety.
That is so interesting, and thank you for bringing that up, because it's something I've been thinking for a really long time. I have two boys, and I'm like, men's mental health is not something that's talked about at all. We are always like, it's easier for women to talk about their mental health, yes, because we're more in touch with our emotions, we're more expressive, but men are forced to be like these strong creatures that don't have or don't feel sad or don't struggle much, right? So it's something that really needs to be talked about, and I feel like I will talk about it on my podcast in this chapter. So as a millennial psychologist, since you moved here, what is the growth in mental health awareness that you've seen, like in terms of the policies or the government stepping up, or like even in like communities, more awareness being created, and just in general in Kenya? Like, have you seen like a pattern of growth in terms of mental health?
Yes, I have seen a very huge growth. So I came back to Kenya in 2016.
Okay.
And I remember when I was coming back, I was being told, you can't practice mental health. You won't get a job. There's nothing here for you. Go to medical school, right? And I have an auntie who was actually a psychologist, and then she went into medical school. However, which I'm so excited, is the fact that things change, right? Obviously, it looked like mental health was not going anywhere. Everyone was ashamed about talking about mental health. Even when I would try and talk to people about it, I always used to be shut down, and I always used to be told that psychologists always go crazy. So you need to be careful, you're going to go crazy. So what has grown is that the previous regime actually did a mental health, task force, and they brought mental health more into light, and we started to see an increase in radio station talking about mental health. We did have different associations, and we did have the Mental Health Act, but then we were not licensed by the Ministry of Health. Okay. So then last year they implemented now the registration process, and officially we can now be licensed by the Ministry of Health as practicing psychologist, and that wasn't there when I started mental health. And when I came, nobody wanted to talk about mental health, even in conversations. But now I'm seeing there are more people seeking out mental health, even if they don't have certain mental health conditions that are on the DSM-TR. You could come and just find a safe space to talk to someone who can actually help you process what you're going through.
Yeah, that is such a great development, I feel like, for mental health experts, especially psychologists, because like just being accredited in the country that you're working in gives you a sense of boost in your career as well, because it just makes you feel more recognized, right? Like that the government recognizes you, and that is of course a crucial step to creating more awareness and including mental health awareness in the growth of the country.
Yes, and it also shows that the society is starting to pay attention that this is a problem. Yeah. This is not only superstition. Yeah. These are conditions that are brain conditions, and we have these professionals that can help. Because beforehand, it was always religious leaders in whatever religious community you come from, who were dealing with this mental health conditions. And that brought a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of negligence, and a lot of people got hurt along the way.
Yeah, because I don't think they were qualified or they had enough information on how to exactly deal with it. They would treat it from the aspect of religion only, right? Like they wouldn't understand the science of how their brain might actually be working, or the trauma that might have resulted in that behavior.
Exactly. Right? I remember I was talking with one of my supervisors when I was being trained, and she was telling me, if you look at a demon-possessed person and see the symptoms in the demon-possessed person, you actually realize that that person might have schizophrenia. But then there are in certain cases where things are out of our control and we're like, okay, it's fine. But imagine how many people who have had schizophrenia, they are becoming unkempt, they are unable to, do daily tasks, they are seeing things that are not there, hearing things that are not there. Their thought process is so disorganized, and automatically someone says, okay, this is a demon-possessed person. And then they go through all these rituals to try and cast out this demon. But in true sense, this person has a chemical imbalance in their brain.
That is so freaky, right? Like when you're dealing with something, you're just being told, oh, you have a demon inside you. You get scared of yourself when you go through those things. Yes. So it's so important to have that awareness. And I'm happy I didn't know about the board being the registration for the board and stuff, which is great. And I feel like there are also, I was talking to someone and they said that there's also now mental health policies being implemented into.
Yeah, there are policies coming out and acts, because we have like the Mental Health Act. There was not much structure, but then at least now it can make us more accountable, and we have like a board who's also, governing us. And I think, it's a good step, because if you go to America, if you go to the UK, all like their degrees are accredited by particular boards. I studied in the UK, so my degree is accredited by a board. So when I came back home, I was asking people, so what board are your, what board of a society are your degrees accredited? Only in USIU is that I know that their degrees are accredited by the American Psychological Association. But now, like other Kenyan universities, I'm sure that can also change.
Yeah, that can happen. Yeah, true. So I want to take you back to when you said people are using mental health for validation or for pity. when you said that, I have anxiety, or like as a trend. So I always say that mental health is a trend that needs to keep trending, because it's very important for us to create the awareness, whether it's based on our expertise, our knowledge, or our experience. But I really like the fact that you brought the other aspect to it, that some people also use it as a way of getting that validation or getting pity, or I don't know, like getting attention. It is also something that needs to be addressed in therapy, I feel like.
It honestly it does, because I remember when I was also doing my research, I realized that narcissists can also manipulate their therapists, so they can be able to understand people's emotions better and manipulate better. So I think that mental health should always trend, because we are saving a lot of people's lives, and we need to make sure we create that space for people to feel safe, especially coming from a cultural background whereby there's hierarchy, whereby certain emotional expressions are not accepted. So it makes us suffer a lot in silence. And especially depending on like the community you come from, like I can speak from mine, like the tribe that I come from, it's usually the man who is dominating, right? So even if a woman wins at certain things, it's not as celebrated as how a man would win.
Definitely.
But that hurts our feelings, right?
Of course.
We feel unlovable. It changes our core belief, how we view ourselves. Are we worthy? Are we doing enough? Right?
It almost feels like as much as we do, we're never good enough to be recognized at their level, right? And that, I feel like that's why most women have this core belief of I'm never good enough, or I'm not good enough, because that discrimination, I feel like not just in your tribe or in your culture, I feel like it's widespread in a lot of cultures. Like I come from India, I grew up in India, and it's very openly talked about there, or very openly women are treated much lower than men. We're not allowed to go out to, and especially Muslim women, a lot of Muslim women. I know that a lot of it is changing now, but I feel like in the remote areas, there is still that discrimination that women are not allowed to go out to work. They're supposed to stay at home and just give birth to kids and do the housework, and men are the only ones that are supposed to be going out doing their thing, whatever they want. They're not told anything. But even as little girls, like I was never allowed to go out at night past 7 p.m. Like that was my curfew. But I know my brother would be allowed to go out at night, and I'm like, okay, I just have to deal with it. I feel like it's not just in Kenya or based on a culture, but a lot of cultures are still discriminating women like that.
True.
And it is definitely affecting our mental health.
It does affect our mental health. Even like for me, I've also been dealing with a lot of cases of women during their pregnancy. And I realized that a lot of them are severely depressed, and they said they need support during that time period. So I try and walk with them until they have their babies, because it's the whole concept of early interventions to help them not fall into like postpartum depression, right? So I deal with a lot of the prenatal, care of their mental health. However, I've also worked a lot with men, right? When I first started Jipende, 90% of my clients were men. Bear in mind, I also had my own, opinions about men and mental health, but it really opened my eyes about also their struggles, their experience. As much as we also suffer as women, also men suffer too, right?
Definitely.
There is a lot of expectations. They are unable to articulate their emotions because there's no room, right? And I remember there was one guy who told me, and he's given me consent to say this, that he felt that he was burning alive.
Whoa.
That's how he felt his mental health was. And then,
But I also feel like that is also culture or the society we grew up in. As much as there is women being devalued, men are being forced to be this strong person.
Yes.
And are told that men are not allowed to cry or be sensitive or have emotions or struggle.
Exactly.
In any way, right? Because they're supposed to be the pillars of strength for their family. They're supposed to be the providers, the caregivers. So that like inherently forces them to like, you know how they always say man up, like, so they're always like forced to be this strong personality, whereas inside they also have emotions, because I feel like as much as we have the masculine side, we also have the feminine side.
Exactly.
Or as women, we have more of the feminine, but we also have the masculine. So they also have that feminine energy inside of them. But again, that takes me back to when I grew up in India as well. Like, that's what I saw amongst men, that they're always supposed to be this strong person, that I've hardly ever seen my dad cry, like, or like express his emotions, you know, like only when I got married I saw him cry, and I'm like, whoa, Dad, can you even cry? I feel like, again, like the society, the culture, like forces men to be this strong personality, and it's, I guess, even if sometimes they don't want to, it's just, I guess, embedded in them to like treat women a little
that way. So then we have like this gender war happening because of the parenting exposure that each person has gone through. So usually when I get a case practicing here, is I have to look at the person I'm working with from a multi-dimensional way. I have to factor in their tradition, their understanding of their gender, their religion, right? Their cultural experience, their educational system too, right?
That's true.
And also their family history of emotional relationships. So nowadays what I ask people is, how do you understand vulnerability? So they'll give me a generic answer, but a lot of people don't even understand how sadness looks like, how joy looks like. So I have to re-educate them about their emotions. I have to teach them, okay, these are your emotional wounds, these are your emotional needs, and have like the way we're having an interaction, and have an interaction with them, because most of them either come from broken homes or come from a society that is telling them who they should be based on their culture, their gender, their religion. Even when somebody is also talking about taking risks, they also have their faith that can tell them, oh, you're doing too much, or you're doing too little, or you should be someone at a certain age. So it's important to look at the male and the female experience and the community that they come from, because we are practicing in a community-based society, but we do not know our individuality, because our identity is attached to the community and the various factors that create this community.
That is so deep. And I feel like it's our journey to like peel off these layers, like onion layers of ours, right? And then I guess as experts or as a coach, that's what I'm working towards with my clients as well. And you work with your clients, like you have to unpeel like the cultural stuff, the educational system, and then see them for who they are really, or show them who they really are, and help them embrace that.
Yes, and I think for me, I'm very happy that I did other disciplines outside psychology, because I always try and tie in like the sociological aspect to help me understand the people that I work with, right? So I like to tell people when I'm talking to them or helping them with their cases, because I try and simplify it in a way that they can understand it. If I use overly clinical explanations, then they will not see themselves as somebody who's experiencing the condition. They'll be able to pick out someone else. So they say, no, not me. I think I have a friend who I think is depressed. So you have to try and make it relatable. So I always tell someone that, you know, the world is your theater. You are the actor. The people you interact with are the audience. What is the story that you're telling? Through that story, we will understand how your brain functions, why you became the way you are, and then we can write another chapter. It sounds simple.
It's so powerful. It is so powerful, simple yet powerful.
Yes, because I think so many people have been belittled. So even when I come to a diagnosis, I always try and see the story behind the symptom. So if somebody comes to me and I say, okay, this person is showing symptomologies of anxiety, I usually tell them, okay, So anxiety is a mental and physical reaction to perceived threat. I ask them, what are your perceived threats? What are the things that scare you? We break it down. Through that, I'll probably understand and figure out this is the trauma. And through that way, they also start to learn about themselves without them feeling like I am the one who's telling them what to do. I am just keeping quiet. I have conversations with them. I also try to understand their personality so they can also feel empowered in their mental health journey. Because if you go to an educational system that is so conformist, that tells you that you have to follow these rules, then you go back home, you have to follow these rules, the person has lost their sense of identity. So the first thing we will see is the condition, but behind the condition is the symptoms. Behind the symptoms is the story of how it developed.
I want to come to you to do all of that. No, I'm joking. No, I have done that.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that because it just shows that a psychologist or a mental health expert does not just work on the surface level.
Yeah.
It's about going inside and finding who you really are again and giving you freedom from those conditioning. Like one of my life values is just getting freedom from all these conditioning.
Yeah.
And you brought that up so well as to how you need to understand the story that you're portraying in the theater, but also who you are under the stories you've been told.
Yes.
That's really cool.
And that way, usually what I do at the end of a person's journey is we try and build your sense of self and your identity. So as much as we've dealt with the mental health condition, you're also rebuilding yourself. And then I also put them on an aftercare program to see how they're reintegrating back into society. And then we do some more small tweaks. And then they can fly the way they want to fly. And my job here is done. But at the same time, it teaches me so much about the community that I'm practicing in, that just because I did this British system or just because mental health was created from Europe or America, right? The techniques, I need to find a way of shaping those techniques to the culture and the level of the maturity of the culture surrounding me. Otherwise, I'll tell them, okay, by the way, depression is, hopelessness. They'll be like, I'm not hopeless, because already people say that vulnerability is weakness.
Yeah.
So you deal with the vulnerability, you help them understand the vulnerability, then you explain to them what hopelessness means. Then they understand, okay, I actually have depression.
Yeah, so you're making it simple.
Simple.
For them to be open to understanding the concepts.
Yes, the concept, exactly. Because imagine telling someone that they have OCD, but not the one for hygiene, but the one for intrusive thoughts. They'll ask you, are you out of your mind? Me? You're trying to say me? Because already they're going with the concept that vulnerability is weakness. So once we tap into that and they understand these things, then it's much easier to build their capacity, and then they can start to slowly adjust. Because accepting a mental health condition is not easy. That's also another journey on its own. Because I remember I was working on a case and I told this person, okay, we found out the condition, and they're like, Rubie, every time I do something, I'm like, maybe it's that condition. Every time I do something, maybe it's that condition. Yeah. So because they hyper focus, and some conditions come hand in hand. But I think that as time goes by, I'm sure even the people who are working on themselves will raise different type of children, and hopefully that environment will also change. But we do need a community, but at the same time, being in the community, having a healthy relationship with yourself will help you have better relationships with others. Understanding how you function, how your brain functions, will allow you to understand other people much better.
Definitely. It's a journey of like self-awareness and self-discovery and getting the right help when you need, right?
Exactly. And always when any person is looking for a therapist, they should shop around, because sometimes people meet other therapists and they don't work together, and that's fine. Maybe your therapist is absolutely boring, and maybe you have like your brain goes 1,000 hours. Maybe you need a therapist who is actually can intellectually stimulate your brain, and the other one is too generic. Shop around, find one that works for you. There's nothing wrong, and then you find that person and click with it. But I think because people have bad experience first time, they think that's it, I'm done. No. Some of us, we don't work with you, we don't work well with you, and that's okay.
Is there anywhere that people can shop for psychologists? So like a resource hub or something where they can look through a few of them. A lot of the men in my life are coming up now saying, okay, I need therapy, I need help. And I have like a couple of psychologists that I've heard of that are good, and the ones I have worked with. So I recommend them. But it would be nice to have like a link or a website to share with, saying, okay, these are registered psychologists, and you will find them there with their specific specializations. Is there anywhere?
Not that I know of,
Okay.
but it's something that I think other practices or organizations are doing.
Okay.
But for me, I have a bunch of psychologists that I refer people to and who refer people to me,
Okay.
men and women.
Okay.
And that's because they work either similar to me, or I think their work is so fantastic.
Okay.
And also I would be, even with the two guys that I know, and somebody, I ask the person, what are you looking for? And I ask them, tell me a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah.
And that way I'm like, okay, you would do well with this person. You do well with that person.
Makes sense, yeah.
But that's something in the future we're working on developing with Jipende, because for me, I can't see everyone, and I know the people that I work with can't see other people. But there's also another very good person that I work with who has her own practice.
Okay.
So she is also building her own organization. So I know that's something she's also doing, and other people are trying to do it. But you see, we're also millennials, so we're trying to catch up and and get there. But definitely Jipende will have that very soon.
I think it's very important. It's something I've been trying to develop as well, that a resource hub for anyone that is looking into getting onto their wellness journey.
Yeah.
Or that is already on their wellness journey, but at a point where they need more help, or where they need guidance on what to do next, or what do they need to explore next.
Yes.
And I think there is a big need for that.
Most definitely, and I think we are heading there, so that at least it's exciting that at least wellness, people in the wellness field, people in mental health are really, really now being more vocal. But I think they have, but now people are talking a bit more, and like people are listening a bit more.
And asking, like now there's
for sure
people asking and getting curious, right? Like,
yes,
what is it? Like, why am I feeling a certain way? Or what is this pattern? Getting more aware of like their patterns that are not serving them or serving their family.
Yes. And I think we need diversity in mental health, because the whole concept of working from a holistic approach, the concept of having, because I always tell people we have a wellness wheel, and in that wellness wheel we have our family, we have our friends, we have our careers, we have academia, we have our physical health, emotional health. All that needs to be catered to, right? But then when you come from our society, we only think about academics, career, and family. Blood is thicker than water. The whole concept, but that's a false narrative, because it's more bonds. But if we cater to all those things, we can learn new things about ourselves. That's why we need more diverse mental health professionals that can bring in different approaches. So even if you're seeing a clinical psychologist, you even have like a life coach. Even if you have that, you even have is it called a reflexologist? Or so we can help that person rebuild them,
create that whole circle, like you said, wellness wheel, right? Like a complete wellness approach, rather than just doing, whether it's talk therapy or just doing massages all day, but like having trouble dealing with their mental health, right? I love that you brought that up, because I strongly believe in holistic wellness, like not just looking at one aspect of your being, which is not just your brain, but your gut, and your heart, and your physical health, and your emotional health, spiritual health, And what you're surrounding yourself with also, I feel like, affects your mental health. So the environment that you live in, how much toxins are there in your environment? What are you exposing yourself to, whether it's through the detergents that you use, or whether it's the perfume you put on your body, right? Like everything, I feel like, gets absorbed into our body. Everything we put inside our body and onto our body, and everything we surround ourselves with, affects our mental health and overall health in some or the other way. So I really appreciate that you brought that up, because I think it's crucial for people to understand that just working out in a gym is not going to improve their overall health. They need to understand and explore different aspects and become aware of what exactly are the other things that might be impacting them or their overall wellness.
That's true, because even before I started Jipende Wellness, I was working in a very toxic work environment. And how can a therapist be in a toxic working environment and then try and cater to other people's mental health? That means we're in the same boat, me and the patient, right? Like we should just sit down and have tea and like talk about our problems when you're in that situation. But I think that, like, for me, I had a holistic team. And when I had that holistic team, it really helped me so much in healing my body, my mind. I had a therapist, I had a nutritionist, I had a physiotherapist, I had a yoga instructor, I had a spiritual guide. And honestly, that really changed my mind. I'm like, listen, this is something fantastic. If people can do it, then I'm sure it can open their minds to seeing themselves in a different way.
And it accelerates your healing, right?
Yes, it does. And you feel so supported, and you feel so seen and so empowered, right? And that's how I felt, so empowered. And I would love, or I hope, that people would be able to get that opportunity. So like even my own personal routine, I love African traditional medicine. I love the herbs. I love everything. Like if you tell me go swim in a pool that has mud that will rejuvenate me, I will jump into it and I'll be like, this is the way. Because I just want all negativity to come out. But then one thing I also do is I try and learn from the people around me. I also say that the people that I work with teach me so much, whether it's the clients that I work with, who I call them members, or the other psychologists that I ask for assistance. They teach me a lot, or even other people I interact or have a short conversation, because I believe that I'm a student of life.
Definitely. Student of life. We're all students of life.
Exactly.
And we're all learning. Anyone we meet, we always have something to learn from them, like if you're just aware and conscious of that.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing your journey and all the different things. I think it was really powerful, and it is going to help so many people out there.
I hope so. That's my...
Before we close, what is something that you can tell our audience that can help them on their mental health journey?
I think that it's important for you to understand your story and write a new chapter. And there's nothing wrong with getting assistance with somebody who can help you bring a different perspective. And if you understand your emotions, if you understand how your brain functions, if you understand what you can and cannot handle with that person assisting you, then you'll also learn that you can move further in your life and you don't have to feel stuck, because we're only human.
We're only human, we're not perfect. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you so much for having me.
So before we close, I do a little rapid fire round with all my guests so that the audience can get to know you a little better. They'll be like small, quick questions. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
So, what's your daily non-negotiable habit for your mental health?
Green tea.
Ooh, that's what you were having today, right?
Yes.
Do you prefer a guided meditation or a musical meditation?
I think a musical one.
Okay. Would you rather sleep an hour or read a book for an hour?
Sleep an hour.
Would you call a friend or text a friend?
Call.
Do you prefer alone time or playing a board game with someone?
Sometimes I like my own space or alone time.
Netflix show or YouTube channel?
That depends on what stimulates my brain, so...
Both.
Both, yeah.
Play a sport or do another workout?
play a sport.
Do you play paddle?
No.
Oh, okay. Because
But I want to try.
like,
I want to try it.
I like playing sport because I play paddle now. What is one piece of advice you could give your younger self about mental health and why?
The fear is subsidized.
What's your personal mantra or affirmation that keeps you going?
Well, this is what my mommy tells me. That I'm a history maker and a history changer.
Wow, that is so cool. What is one last piece of advice that you can give our audience?
Your emotions are valid.
Nice. Emotions are valid. All our emotions are valid.
But not the crazy ones, but like, I'm just kidding.
Not the crazy ones? No, the crazy ones too, right?
Or maybe I can reconstruct it in a way that you can learn from what you feel.
You can learn from what you feel. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. It's the same thing, but it's
different.
It feels more, like it sits more with you, right?
Yes.
That was really nice. Thank you.
Thank you so much
for being here and sharing such powerful information. I feel like I have to go through the episode again and like make notes because you said some really cool stuff, which I want to make notes of, and I feel like I would want to put it on my whiteboard.
Oh, bless
that would remind me. Thank you for being here. As a token of appreciation, we have a little gift for you.
Oh, this is so
nice. It
nice.
has all the wellness goodies, so I hope you enjoy it.
Oh,
and I hope it helps
so much
on your journey.
Thank you
on your
so
self-care
much.
journey.
I appreciate this. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here. Wait, don't go just yet. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe because your support means everything to us. I'm sure you enjoyed watching this episode because I know I did. Thank you for watching it, and until next time, keep prioritizing your well-being.